And I can't find a seconder usually when I record this, but I don't care. I don't need a seconder. My own opinion is enough for me, and I claim the right to have it defended against any consensus, any majority, anywhere, any place, any time. And anyone who disagrees with this, pick a number, get online, and kiss my ass.
And we are building rockets and developing technologies to get this country back to the top when it comes to space exploration. And it doesn't stop there.
It's not a 7-syllable word.
In the current push for electric vehicles, so often what is left out of the conversation is the fact that we're having to rely on other countries for an important ingredient in producing
Did you know that was an important ingredient?
EV batteries. Now, our country will turn to Westwater Resources in Coosa County for this critical resource in battery manufacturing.
Range, you know the filthiest thing in the world that you can possibly make?
Graphite.
Graphite. Clean energy for everyone.
I don't know. I know a guy named Harry Reams that would probably disagree with you.
So no representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed are greater than the legal services provided by other lawyers. I'm Harry Steele. You found the Backstory Podcast, number 116. You just saw a little clip of the governor's, or my commentary overlay of the governor's state address, and we'll get into some of the major announcements that she made during that speech as we go through the program. I have my client and partner in crime, Mr. Paul Ripp, here with me today. How are you, Mr. Ripp?
Present. Catch us on RippReport.com, especially this week. Got a interesting article about a rocket scientist.
And Mr. Russian, how are things at the Houston branch?
They're a little chilly, but we're expecting in the next, 4 hours for it to get hot again.
Right.
Yeah, that's headed our way, I think.
So the 2022 Alabama Legislative session started Tuesday. There's a pretty decent article about what to expect, but one of the things you can bet your hiney on is there going to be some crazy bills that you can't imagine that anybody would ever sponsor, but this is election year.
Right.
So another thing that's going on, and one of the major points that the governor made, so there's $1.8 billion in CARES Act money that these ass clowns are going to allocate during the session. So what we expect is, okay, so
$1.8 billion.
Right. So while the legislature is in regular session, no one can raise money that's running for the legislature. Okay? It's a prohibition. But if they hold a special session during the regular session to appropriate the $1.8 billion, then they'll be able to raise money during the regular session. Oops.
Oh, my.
Yes.
Wow, that's an interesting workaround. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
You can be sure the lottery will go nowhere.
Oh, I bet it does. I bet we're either going to get everything or we're going to get nothing.
We're not going to get a lottery.
Well, we're going to get casino gaming and all of it out of this thing, and we're not going to get anything. So anyway, the governor was saying if we keep working together like we have, and then she crapped all over it's an election year, and she has a lot of, we'll talk about that too. My Republican Party wasting money and resources and my attention, running 7-8 people against a very popular incumbent female governor, Republican governor.
Yeah, makes you wonder what's going on.
So Alabama's.
Well, I can.
Go ahead.
I'll tell you, you're seeing your national politic distilling down to your local level. The Republican Party, if you think the Democrats are in trouble right now, you hadn't been paying attention to the Republican Party. As far as a party goes, the Republican Party is on like their 8th implosion in the last year.
Yep.
And what you're seeing is factioning to the highest degree within the Republican Party, because and it's not even binary. It's not a pro-Trump versus an anti-Trump crowd. It's the pro-Trump, the moderate Trumps, the non-Trumps, the never-Trumps, the Tea Parties who are revolting against everybody, and the dark horse candidates who are raising private money. That's happening. You think that's happening nationally. It's happening in your state. Your Republican Party is running and backing all of these candidates. because they don't feel like Kay Ivey has done enough as a Republican. She's kind of a bit of a Dixiecrat to them. So they're basically throwing, to embody the old saying, they're putting stuff up the flagpole to seeing who salutes it. And it is a colossal waste of time and resource and treasure and capital and political capital for the state Republican Party, because the primary race is going to be your governor's race.
Right.
Because do you know who the leading Democratic candidate is for the governorship of Alabama?
Who cares? Doesn't matter. It's not Walt Maddox. They're not going to win.
Wait a minute. Who?
Right. So it's going to come down to where your primary is going to be your GE, and it's going to be the biggest waste of campaign funds in the state of Alabama.
Absolutely.
Since in recent history.
So
it's not completely without design. It's just a really crappy range Russian whiteboard design.
Okay, well, the governor touted the Rebuild Alabama Act, saying that the new 10-cent, remember the $100 million gas tax that they passed immediately after being elected last time. So anyway, she touted that a good bit. You can see here there's some other information about income ranges and things of that nature, and Alabama is only one of 5 states without a lottery. It would generate $166 million annually hopefully for education. We'll do something like Georgia did. And
Florida.
And so I just thought I found some interesting infographics online, nothing very recent, but certainly during her tenure. You can see the total number of state employees that we have and what percentage each department takes. And then Alabama's economic trend. Alabama's per capita income was $46,000 in 2020, ranking 46th among the states. And you can keep reading. If you want to slit your wrist, read about our poverty rate, infant mortality and that kind of stuff. She didn't mention
any of that in her speech.
No, she didn't mention any of that.
Or the prisons.
And I wanted to show you
Medicaid.
where some of these general fund revenues come from. Now, I'm not talking about education fund and all that. I've got some information in here, but this just shows you how much Alabama spends, what the Southeast spends, and what the well, I guess these are intergovernmental transfers and sources of income, and then this is the spending on major, health and hospitals, K through 12, public welfare, highways and roads, and you can see we're lacking in almost every area, except for where? Health and hospitals.
Health and hospitals and higher education. Well, just so you can have an idea, folks that are watching this, if you take time to read the graphic, those are tracking numbers against the other southeastern states, and the black bar is the United States, is the federal average of spending.
Right.
So they're tracking a little bit lower in areas of other southeastern states, but they're tracking well below the federal level, which honestly tracks with your state, because your state can't afford to spend the same amount of money the federal government does, because unlike the state of Alabama, unlike the federal government, the state of Alabama cannot just make up debt.
Well, I can promise you, if they don't fix these prisons, see that little blue bar right there? It's going to be way over here.
Way over there.
So this is one thing that I did not know. So the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency partnered with a private group, and they got what's called sensory training.
Inclusive practice.
Right.
Yeah.
And it includes not only dealing with deaf and blind people, but people with PTSD, autism, dementia, mental health issues. So every one of our state troopers is trained.
How about Baldwin County?
What I'm trying to say is it didn't happen through a post. It happened through a third party. And that tells you all you need to know about a post.
Of course, on de-escalation.
So you guys see this revenue trend right here? I mean, why would you be bitching if you were a state legislator? Look at the revenue just going up every year. And saying that we don't spend any money on education, you see, we have a $2.56 billion general fund budget and an $8.64 billion education trust fund budget. Yeah.
But yet the teachers have got to buy pens, pencils, and papers for school.
Well, it's not about money. It's about the effective use and all these, having elected superintendents of education instead of appointed in about 2/3 of our counties. It's all political. And the people that get the jobs in the offices are turnover and they're political. And that's not how it's supposed to be. And it certainly shouldn't be in this day and age. So we have upcoming primary elections. The last day to qualify is the 28th of this month.
22nd, isn't it?
I think it's the 28th. Yeah, 28th at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
And these are all of our local offices that are up, sheriff, coroner, all 4 commission seats, 2 Board of Education seats, and you see who has pre-qualified as Republicans here. And if you want to run for state house, state senate, DA, or judge, you have to do so through the state party.
Doesn't look like there's going to be much competition, huh?
Well, we got Wilters running again. Nobody's qualified against him. He's been
That's
on.
why he's running.
Well, and some people decide to spend their career in public service, and he's one of them.
Yeah, but he retired, remember? They brought him back out of retirement.
He retired to run for DA. He was our presiding judge and retired to run for DA.
No,
because the DA was so bad.
Whoa.
Yep.
Whoa. No. He was going to retire permanently. Then Hallie Dixon at the last moment did not run and did not qualify almost on the last day. And then Wilters announced.
Okay, Wilters came and got money from being David Simon in July prior to qualifying. I'm just telling you, he was running, and he raised so much money, she decided not to run again as the incumbent. And she had a terrible record. I mean, there was no way that she was going to win.
All that money he raised?
I don't know. I guess he still got it. He might need it if somebody runs against him.
I know a couple of people he asked for money.
Sheriff Mack, who we've been talking about his deputies dropping bodies, and he has us in 4 federal lawsuits right now, is seeking his 5th term as sheriff. And I wouldn't be so raw-assed about it, but I find myself wanting to run against him, and I'm prohibited by the Constitution of Alabama, which has been amended to say that I have to be APO certified and have 3 immediate years of past law enforcement experience. But I could be the Supreme Court Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court, but I can't run for sheriff in this backwater county.
$65 million for a jail. That's the biggest project Baldwin County has
Jail town, Bay Minette.
For all these years, and they're going to spend $65 million on the jail.
Jail town.
Jail town, that's it.
I love it. And I don't know, were you here for this one?
Yeah.
Rains, Steve McMillan has cancer. And population densities, just some maps, so you'll know, if you want to stop the video and see where your house is and where these are the House districts, these are the old House districts, these are the Senate districts.
Nothing confusing about that.
No, that should no problem whatsoever. Baldwin County Commission districts. And what I think are going to be consequential in these local races are these asinine projects that nobody's behind but a handful of people at the MPO.
Right.
Your buddy, what's his name? Right. Jerry Carl came out in favor of the toll bridge project.
Right. They all had to get on. They all had to get on the same boat.
Yeah. Well, they were,
But it may not. But it may not work. It may not work out for them. I tell you. Because there's a lot of people totally opposed to the toll.
Yeah, and so while we're trying to build a toll road to get more people here, Baldwin County Commission is having a series of public meetings related to land use. And, of course, we have 2 municipalities that have moratoriums on growth right now. And Foley, Tuesday, January 25th, 5:30 to 7 at the Baldwin County Foley Satellite Courthouse. Robertsdale, Monday, January 24th, 5:30 to 7 p.m. at the Baldwin County Central Annex on Palmer Street. And then one in Fairhope. I guess Bay Minette doesn't rate a meeting.
No.
Fairhope, Tuesday, January 25th, 10 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. at the Fairhope Satellite Courthouse. Commission chambers. Hey, we'll finally get to see where they spent $1 million finishing the second floor of the satellite courthouse.
I didn't think you were allowed to go up there.
I haven't been up there yet. I can't get an audience with His Majesty.
But show up, people. You can't, if you want to have part of this, we got a real problem in Baldwin County with the building and zoning and Baldwin County sewer. So this is your opportunity to speak up and say something. Please attend some of these meetings.
So while all this is going on, coronavirus is running rampant.
Crazy,
okay, I
crazy.
mean everybody's got it now. Suppose, and I had Flurona, and I guess I had the Omicron variant, and it's not supposed to be as lethal, but I can tell you I felt really, really crummy, really, really bad. So this week we had a major jump, 64.5 million infected in the U.S. with 848,051 deaths. Strickland Youth Center. So you know how we have this will to keep the schools open and the will to keep the courts open and we're not going to do anything preventative, right?
Yeah.
But when everybody that works at Strickland Youth Center is sick and can't come to work,
That's
you got to
the
shut
problem.
down. You can't go see your kid that's stuck in Strickland Youth Center over in Mobile.
Well, it's the same problem with the jails.
So Baldwin County Public Schools on Tuesday announced that they had 200 employees out with corona. You see what I mean? You can have all this will to keep it open, but if everybody's sick and there's nobody to drive the buses, how the hell the kids are going to get to school?
Right. You're supposed to stay out 5 days after exposure.
This is what we talked about 2 weeks ago. This is that whole month of loss of services
Right.
Yeah.
that we're seeing because of layouts from sick employees not coming to work.
It's a loss of productivity, even if nobody dies.
Absolutely.
And the majority of those sick have not had a shot. Go figure.
Well, that's not true.
That is
The
true.
most of
Well,
the
that's the
majority
thing
of the
about
ones
the-
that are going to the hospital haven't been vaccinated. But people like
Right.
me that are fully vaccinated, I mean, I just went and
It's
got
still
tested
put
because
you
I
down
wanted to
for 5
know.
days.
Yeah.
There's nothing that they didn't give me any medicine. They didn't tell me anything except if you start feeling bad, go to the emergency room. And it's 2 years into this bullshit.
Man.
So Reuters says, and this was just a little while ago, Biden directs U.S. to procure 5 million more COVID tests to meet demand.
500 million.
Yeah, and that's not going to be enough. So the big news this week, and the reason that you should be terrified of these people because they control your lives, and if you listen to the debate amongst the court members, you will find wild misconceptions about all levels of the pandemic, if you know what I mean, without being critical of our justices. You understand? I can't do that. So they determined that private employers can't be mandated through OSHA to vaccinate or otherwise test their employees. And so it's a major blow to Biden's plan to vaccinate everyone. Them's the rules, man.
Yeah, one more excuse not to be vaccinated.
That's the same Supreme Court that says you can't mandate someone be vaccinated to ensure employment. But that's the same, they said that, and they ruled correctly in that paper. They're also the same Supreme Court that said we can mandate, that states can mandate how women handle things according to their pregnancy and whatnot. So I'm wondering if the Supreme Court of the United States is actually pro-life or just pro-party at this point.
Looks a lot like
Spoken like a
pro-party.
true Democrat. So these are the hot spots last week, hot spots this week. How about that? Things are getting darker. Last week or 2 weeks ago, see the increase of positivity is 164%. Last week it was 46%, and you see the numbers here, 2,074. So this week, 2,200. Yeah. But no deaths. But that's a whole lot of sick people.
A lot of sick people.
Mr. Olson, I will say it was sad. Senator Lee just asked you about this. Back in June of 2021, Senator Lee and I and 2 other senators sent a letter to the Department of Justice asking these questions, asking about the differential prosecutions. Let me ask you, during 2020, Black Lives Matter and Antifa riots all across the country, there were over 700 police officers injured by Black Lives Matter and Antifa riots. How many people have been charged with crimes of violence concerning those riots all across the country?
I don't have information on how many. I would say, hundreds of people have been charged, as Ms. Sanborn.
You would say, but you don't know. when we asked you why the Biden Department of Justice has such wildly disparate standards, going after January 6th, targeting some people who committed crimes of violence, and anyone who commits crimes of violence should be prosecuted, but also targeting a lot of nonviolent individuals. We asked you, why is it that you won't target the rioters and terrorists who firebomb cities across this country? The answer we got from the Department of Justice was shameful. On October 22nd, you came back and said, quote, "The department has dedicated investigative and prosecutorial resources commensurate with the significance of these events." By significance, I guess it means the political benefit to the Biden White House. And I will tell you, there are a great many Americans who are understandably deeply concerned about the politicization of the Department of Justice under President Joe Biden. It has been 218 days since we sent you that letter. DOJ refused to answer the letter. Today, when Senator Lee and I asked you about it, your answer to every damn question is, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. You're under oath. You may believe at the Department of Justice that you are unaccountable to the American people, but that is not the case. And the wildly disparate standards are unacceptable.
Cancun Ted.
I want to turn to the FBI.
This is where
How
it
many
gets
FBI
good.
agents or confidential informants actively participated in the events of January 6th?
I don't know.
A bunch.
Sir, I'm sure you can appreciate that I can't go into the specifics of sources and methods.
Did any FBI agents or confidential informants actively participate in the events of January 6th? Yes or no?
Sir, I can't answer that.
Did any FBI agents or confidential informants commit crimes of violence on January 6th?
I can't answer that, sir.
Did
That
any
would be
FBI
agents
agents or
provocateur.
FBI informants actively encourage and incite crimes of violence on January 6th?
Sir, I can't answer that.
Ms. Sadburn, who is Ray Epps?
I'm aware of the individual, sir. I don't have the specific background to him.
Well, let me show you who he is.
There are a lot of people who are understandably very concerned about Mr. Epps. On the
That's
night of
their
January
audio, not
5th,
ours.
Yeah.
2021, Epps wandered around the crowd that had gathered. And there's video out there of him chanting, "Tomorrow, we need to get into the Capitol, into the Capitol." This was strange behavior, so strange that the crowd began chanting, "Fed, Fed, 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 Fed." Ms. Sandburn, was Ray Epps a Fed?
Sir, I cannot answer that question.
The next day, on January 6th, Mr. Epps is seen whispering to a person, and 5 seconds later, 5 seconds after he's whispering to a person, that same person begins to forcibly tear down the barricades. Did Mr. Epps urge them to tear down the barricades?
All right. Time out.
Really? Come
Can we just
on.
pause this for a second?
Oh, we can't. Let's
Some of the
let's listen
other
to what the
answers, I cannot
FBI has
answer
to
that.
say.
They ain't said nothing.
Shortly thereafter, the FBI put out a public post seeking information on individuals connected with violent crimes on January 6th. Among those individuals, in the bottom there, is Mr. Epps. The FBI publicly asked for information, identifying, offering
I
cash
can't, dude.
rewards leading to information.
Because this has all been
for
debunked by
information
the
leading to
committee
the
and by the
arrest. This
Department
was
of Justice
posted, and
within the
then
last week.
sometime later,
Right.
Ray Epps is not a government operative.
magically,
This is
And it's been
Cancun
Mr.
Ted
Epps
getting his
disappeared
braids
from the
tied.
public post.
This is somebody
According
that
to
wants
public
to run
records,
for
Mr. Epps
president.
has not been charged
pontificate.
with anything.
Ray
No
Epps
one's
is not part
explained.
of a conspiracy that the United States government used him as an active asset or agent in pushing forward any of the riots, and that's been completely debunked. I'm not going to
Didn't
sit
happen.
idly by while we replay a week-old video
Did
of
not
this
happen.
idiot pontificating about it when 3 days after he talked about it, it got completely debunked.
Great. I'd like for you to send me that debunked information.
We will.
I certainly will, and I'm happy to do that because what Ted Cruz is doing is not investigating anything. Ted Cruz is trying to run for president.
That's it.
That's it.
Period.
He is pandering to his base.
I don't care.
And
I don't care what he's doing. He's the only person asking the pertinent questions. I will take you back to remember when we watched William F. Buckley and Gore Vidal at the
Yes.
68 Democratic Convention. They did the same
Harry,
thing. They put agents provocateur
I'm
in
gonna fight you to the bitter end on this. I can
Okay.
understand your theory that people need to ask the questions and that Congress people
Certainly
need to ask
do.
the questions and our representatives need to ask the questions. But that is not a person seeking answers. That is a person seeking public office.
Right.
And there's a huge difference.
Fair enough.
There
He's
is a
playing
huge
gotcha.
difference.
He's trying to play gotcha.
I love it.
Well,
He's pandering to his base. He's not asking for expository information. He's not asking, hey, these are answers the American people need to hear. That's not what he's asking. He's asking questions so he can tell his base the DOJ doesn't know.
right.
So it's all a massive conspiracy. He's pushing the big lie. And I'm not going to sit by and let
It's not the-
anybody
it's got
say,
nothing
this
to
is
do with the
our
big lie.
executive.
It does
So,
too,
so
Harry. Hell.
you two Democrats need to
No,
unwind your
no.
panties
Independent. I'm an
and
independent.
think
Don't
about
be
this.
branding me.
Think about it. Who was the president in charge of the FBI when all this shit went down?
Don't be branding me.
Tell me, Raines, who was in charge of the FBI?
Well, look.
On January 6th,
Yeah,
it was still President Trump.
absolutely. So how is this pushing the big lie? If he had
Because
agent
he's not
provocateurs
asking
there to make
questions
sure that
because
they
he
went
wants
in
to
there
get
and
an
disrupted the counting of the electoral votes.
He's not asking questions because he wants to get the answer. It's performance.
That's
It's
all
just
it is.
it's campaigning is what he's doing. If he wanted to be an honest part of the committee investigating the stuff, he would ask these things of the people through memos and everything else and get the answers he wants.
He
and then
did.
would
That's what he was
expound
saying.
on
He
them.
asked these questions, and here you sit 200 days later, and you still won't answer.
You know what? You don't know
That's
the answer. He showed you a
grandstanding.
piece of damn
That's
paper.
grandstanding.
Yeah.
Anybody that wants to know the real answers asks the questions, gets responses, and then talks about the responses. They don't ask them when the cameras are on. It's ridiculous. It's political theater. And I'm not going to sit here and allow you to defend or post up Ted Cruz as some sort of hero.
I'm not
of
saying
the
he's a
congressional
hero.
hearings
I'm
because
saying he's the
not.
only one asking the questions.
It's
Grandstanding.
horse crap.
Grandstanding. Period.
It's speaking of grandstanding, the responsibility speech. I loved it. So you guys remember that our new Senator Tuberville was at the Trump Hotel and had a big meeting with a bunch of people the night before the riot, right?
Right.
So he's in hot water
Oh,
because he bought a bunch of stock and didn't
Oh.
report it.
he's gotten hot water over that before, hadn't he?
Yeah.
Well,
Stock.
before you move on, let me just talk about that real fast. So anybody that doesn't know, Alibaba is a company that is a Chinese multinational technology company, and they specialize in e-commerce, retail, internet technology. And Tommy Tuberville, I'm gonna put the same hubris to my former statement as I do to this. Tommy Tuberville, let's talk about him and what he is, right? Tommy Tuberville is a head coach. So Tommy Tuberville says, hey, I need a special teams coach that's going to take care of my kicking team. I don't want to have to take care of designing plays for the punt team. All right, well, that's what he has a financial advisor for. His financial advisor bought some shares of Alibaba stock and then sold them because that's what financial portfolio managers do. And they don't call you and tell you what they're doing unless you've got certain orders with your broker that says, I need you to notify me for any transaction over X amount or below X amount. I'm not saying that Tommy Tuberville is in any way innocent of doing that, but I'm saying that Tommy Tuberville was very likely not knowledgeable of it when it took place. Unless he has a push order on his phone that says his stockbroker has to send him a text every time he buys certain stocks, which I highly doubt. That was just his special teams coach coming up with a punt play. So I'm not going to nail him. I'm not going to build a St. Andrew's cross to lace Coach Tuberville up on because of this particular transaction.
But
I am going to say that if he had a better optics team, this kind of story wouldn't be front page news.
Right. And he has gotten himself in hot water out of stock purchases before and lawsuits. So, like you said,
bilking people out of money. His business partner went to federal prison.
Absolutely. Like I said, I'm not in any way, raising my hat to him. I'm just saying that, if he had a better optics team, this kind of thing wouldn't be front page news, and we could focus on the stuff that's really wrong with having a former Auburn head coach as your state representative.
So, Republican House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy refuses to cooperate with the U.S. Congressional Committee investigating Donald Trump's action on January 6th.
See how far that gets him.
Daily Beast, Mo Brooks is the January 6th congressman who can't keep his mouth shut. You should definitely go read that.
No Mo.
Yeah.
And it turns out that the FBI partnered with a technology firm to sell people uncrackable phones. Now, guess who paid a premium for those?
Honeypot phone.
Criminals.
I
and
bet.
the FBI had track of everything that they ever did the whole time they had the phone. So, yeah. Other big news today related to the Capitol riot or whatever.
That's some serious charges here now.
The leader of the Oath Keeper and 10 other individuals indicted in federal court for seditious conspiracy and other offenses related to the Capitol breach. And there's a little bit more information about it, all the individuals. And Raines, why don't you tell us the significance of this? Is sedition, is this are we to the level of Class A misdemeanor or it's
That's
not
on up
treason?
Well, actually, it is treason under, if you define it that way. What the conspiracy charge, there's a difference between charge with sedition and seditious conspiracy. Seditious conspiracy is a huge charge. I mean, he's looking at 20 years. Every one of them is. But it's really, it requires only that conspirators, that you made and began a plot against the United States. And really, you only get charged with true sedition if the plot succeeds.
Well,
it's like getting charged.
Well, let me give you a little technical legal issue with that, because conspiracies happen all the time and they never go anywhere and nobody ever gets charged because no one makes an overt act to further the conspiracy. So that's the reason you have RICO. That's how you get, mob bosses.
Right.
They came up with the plan and one of their soldiers committed the crime so you can get everybody in the crime family. So that's kind of the theory that they're working on here, is this seditious conspiracy. They may not have done anything seditious themselves, but other people involved in the conspiracy obviously made an overt act. And Joshua James, 34, of Arab, Alabama, is one of the people charged here.
Well, we've got the big dog. We've got Mr. Stewart here in Texas, and in fact, he's having his pretrial hearing right now. His arraignment is today.
Stewart
I know
Rhodes.
that. Let's see, which one is he on there? Vallejo.
I think it's Elmer Stewart Rhodes, 56, of Granbury, Texas, the founder and leader of the Oath Keepers.
Edward Vallejo pled not guilty, and he is remanded into custody without bond until his next appearance on Thursday. And I believe that's going to be the same case for Stewart Rhodes. He's the leader of the Oath Keepers. He's the one with the eye patch, and he is being brought up in front of the federal judge here in Texas today. In fact, right now, I'm following a stream right now that's updating that, but it's very likely he's going to plead not guilty as well. The Sedition Act, the Criminal Sedition Act, has been used successfully in most cases against. Let me take that back and reword it. The Seditious Conspiracy Act has been used most prominently against Puerto Rico independence nationalists in the last, since the Sedition Act's been around since World War I, and most successes have come against people who were Puerto Rican and were nationalist Puerto Ricans and wanted to revolt against being part of the United States. So that's most of the time where it's been used successfully. We've had a lot of militias and fringe groups that have been brought up on seditious conspiracy charges, but a lot of those charges didn't stick because most of the evidence they had was circumstantial. That was pre-internet. Now we have a thing where you can subpoena online companies, much like the January 6th committee subpoenaed Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, to get all of their information of stuff that people have posted, that's far from circumstantial. And so we're going to look at this being a little more of a leggy charge than what we've seen in the past.
All right, Mr. Ripp, it's time for the Ripp Report. Tell us about the Lego rocket scientist.
Well, you can always keep faith in Fairhope because you got Jack Burrell down there, and sure as the world when things are just going smooth and a little quiet, he'll raise his head, and here we go again. People know that Jack's been involved with the Fairhope Airport for years, and it's been just complete chaos from day one. About March of last year, after the election, Jack went and removed from the city site the online meetings for the Fairhope Airport Authority. And when he did that, everybody just took a deep breath and said, uh-oh, what's he up to? He's up to something that he wants to go undercover and nobody know what's going on in these meetings. And then, if everybody will remember, I think it was on the 22nd of November, he resigned as president of the council. That just led to more suspicion as to what was going on. And then in the Lego rocket scientist, the Ripp Report of the day, you can go to ripreport.com and read it. But what happened next was that they are trying to evict the FBO
at the Fairhope Municipal Airport.
At the Fairhope Municipal Airport. And I can assure you that they have already moved ahead trying to do something there that we don't know yet. Anyway, it looks as if they're dealing with a pretty good adversary this time, because what they did was they told them that they're going to cancel their lease. And then in a chess move, they came back and said, well, we have 30 people out there with airplanes and hangars that are under a lease to us, so all those people can get out of the get out of the hangars, unless you want to drop the lawsuit. And now Jack and them are all beside themselves that they would do something like that after they've done what they've done. So you've got to follow this, folks. It's going to get real interesting, but I can assure you, you have to be extremely suspicious of Burrell and what's going on, because it's been one controversy after the other ever since he's been out there. And it all started with the bid rigging that it was set up in the beginning there. So I figured it had to be Legos. But anyway, it's going to be very interesting to see what goes on. I can assure you it's not over. On the 19th, they are threatening on the 19th that something has got to happen. So we'll see what the lawyers do in California versus here. But the way that they went about this, the way that the airport went about it with Jack and everything, same thing.
And
same
taking
way,
the meetings offline.
Right, and taking the meetings offline. It's the same thing, and I don't know when people, Fairhope pays an appropriation of $350,000 a year to the airport. We were paying $500,000 until a couple of years ago. We received not 1 cent in monetary gain from that, and this is all for the benefit of less than 1% of the people. So, there you have it. And if something's not done, you're going to look up one day and see Southwest coming over the top of your house to land, because nobody knows what's going on at the airport, I can assure you. Next in Lagniappe, Scott Johnson. Scott, I think, is a pretty new writer here for Lagniappe. We want to be the flagship of the Gulf Coast. That's the new President Joe Bonner looking to be a boom to South Alabama. Mr. Bonner has got a pay package of around $600,000 a year. However, that could be a very, very good investment, because Mr. Bonner's been around quite some time. He's got a pretty good reputation, and he should be able to really raise money for the school.
And for the last 2 quadrenniums, he's been the chief of staff to Governor Ivey.
Right, and whether it's a prospective student, a member of our staff or facility, or it's a supporter, we want the university to become the University of the Gulf Coast. We want you to be part of where we're going, because we're getting ready to take the university to the next step, and we'd like you to be on the team with us. They have about an alumni right now, I think of, let's see, what was it? They had a pretty strong alumni with 14,000, impact for the state, enrolling more than 14,000 students, with a reported 7,000 faculty and staff members, is already one of the largest employers in the region and provides $1 billion plus economic impact for the state, enrolling more than 14,000 students. So good luck to Mr. Bonner and the flagship of the Gulf Coast. We'll see what happens, but pretty optimistic about it. Might be a good choice. He says his doors are always open for anyone that wants to come talk to him, so if you got a bitch, go and see him. Next is an article in Lanyap by the Beltway Beat. This is Jeff Poore, lottery not this year. I kind of agree with Jeff. In 1998, Don Sigelman was elected on the promise to push the education lottery, which was a national trend at the time, but in 99, his ill-conceived effort to bring a lottery to Alabama fell short by a vote of the public. And assuming Ivey wins re-election later this year, and there is not a lot of turnover in Alabama Legislature, 2023 and beyond look as the best shot for any type of lottery. That's 22 years, folks, that we've been without a lottery while we are exporting our money to other states. Makes absolutely no sense. Neutral party permitting agency may benefit from port's dredge disposal site. This is by Gabe Times Lanyap. And this is, again, about the...
So can I explain this real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so the Port Authority is charged with dredging the river up here where the port is. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is charged with dredging the ship channel from Gilliard Island right there all the way out past Dixie Bar and Fort Morgan and everything, right? Mm-hmm. So what they're saying is the Corps of Engineers is the one issuing the permit.
Right.
But after they issue the permit, they may also use this site to get rid of dredge spoil.
Right.
So how in the hell are they neutral?
Well, it's good to have somebody on your side, I guess. But last week, the Corps did extend the public comment period for the Upper Mobile Bay Wetland Creation Project until February 3rd. Remember, this is 1,200 acres, folks, so you may want to chime in on it. And, you can get your Lanyap free and some newsstands. You can get it delivered to you, or you can pick it up have it mailed to you. Let's see.
So I've got one real quick.
Right.
So this year, 2 different bills, each having more than 35 co-sponsors, including Speaker Mack McCutcheon and the Public Safety Committee Chairman. This is a bill to enable you to carry a firearm concealed on your person or in your vehicle without a permit.
Absolute insanity.
Absolutely, you're right, and no business of the government's. They have a list that has everyone who's not supposed to do this, and there's no reason for you to have to go give the sheriff money to do something the Constitution says you have a right to do.
Well, let me give you a little something on that. In Mobile each year, they turn down 600 people for a pistol permit. Those 600 people now would be eligible to just go get a pistol.
That is such bullshit, Paul Ripp.
That's
They would possess it illegally.
Maybe, but it's going to be a hell of a lot easier to
No,
get.
sir. They wouldn't have a part. The only difference is you would have a card from the sheriff that says you're a permitted holder. They have a list of all the people who are not supposed to have a gun. There's a database. If they pull you over and you have a firearm and you're on that list, you go to jail. Simple.
Well, the sheriff's department.
And this is one of the guys who's absolutely against it. It's Sam Cochran.
Against it.
And Hoss Mack is absolutely against it. That should tell you something. It's a revenue stream for them. It has nothing to do with your safety.
Right.
And never has.
Same thing as the prison project in Bay Minette. It's a cottage industry, going to raise it to 935 beds. Let's see how fast we can fill them up.
So Cochran's hanging it up after 4 terms, but Mack's going to run for a 5th term.
Yeah, well, I think he's going to get some feedback for sure, Mack is. Also, good as gold. Lawsuit claims D.R. Horton homes are not built to fortified standards. This is by Gabe Times, and he talks about a couple and what their experience has been from coming from Oklahoma to the Cypress Village in Orange Beach, and it sounds like it's pretty much been a nightmare. A lot of what is the Golden Triangle, there's a bunch of houses up in that area. They're not fortified gold program homes. They do get inspected, but they have been finding all types of inferiorities in the home building, and that has led to the class action suit. And if you're familiar with class action suits, all they ever do is grow more and more and more once people learn about it.
Do you know how many building inspectors they have in Loxley, Alabama?
One, I think.
And he's also the building official and the planning and zoning person, and he answers the phone when you call,
right.
And he's overwhelmed.
And that's just
wasn't there a program not long ago that dealt with fortified roofs and things like that?
Yeah, it's a construction standard you have to build to,
Yeah.
and these people were told they were buying a fortified home, and they were not fortified home. Well,
Right.
the lawsuit alleges they
The
were
gold
not fortified
standard
homes.
for-
I
Well,
don't know if they are or
just to throw this particular stick in the in case you forgot fire, who was in charge of that program?
The Alabama insurance, you had to send the plans in, and then you had to have an inspector come out and send a notice in saying that it was certified or whatever. I guess the builder could do it. Most of what you're talking about, Raines, was the fortified roof program, and it was retrofits. It was retrofit. So these are new houses, and they're supposed to meet that fortified standard, and they're claiming they didn't. They went and looked. They didn't put the extra stuff on the roof. They didn't put the extra hurricane straps on the rafters, that kind of thing.
Right.
Or purlins.
So just in case anyone decides to go Googling, there's a name that's going to come up a lot when you Google Baldwin County fortified homes, and the name is Chris Elliott. So I'm not trying to draw a direct string between the two, one of those red goofy strings on the wall, but it's really hard to deny it when you do a Google search for that sort of thing.
Right. Okay, well, one other thing in Lagniappe, the sports section, The Score, I know everybody's going to remember this. It's Dog Days, featured by Tommy Hicks. Georgia wins the national title. I know that's not anything that most people wanted to hear, but it was about time for Georgia to get it, and they really, really had their heart and soul into it. Everybody, you want to keep up with what's going on, please get your Lagniappe, read the ripreport.com, come back to the podcast, and we'll try to fill you in on what we didn't there.
So the other important thing that I included in the State of the Union, I want to
say something. Can I say something?
This is class.
You know, these two guys that are sitting up here, they're not defined by one game. These guys played great for us all year. They're great competitors. They were great leaders on this team, and they contributed tremendously to the success of this team, and we would not be here without them. All right, and both of them take responsibility for the loss, but both of them contributed in a lot of ways in a positive way to giving us a chance to win and a chance to be here to have an opportunity to win. So I just want to thank them for that and let everybody know how proud I am of these two guys.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you very much.
Class act.
Absolutely. As much as I hate his guts.
I don't. Stands up for what he thinks.
So Kyle Whitmire wrote a low-hanging fruit article, but I completely agree with him, crapping all over the Constitution of 1901, which I completely agree with. And you should definitely go read this article. So did you see Jeff Poor's article about the infrastructure woes in the Black Belt?
Right. That was just featured on 60 Minutes, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
And so one of the things the governor talked about in her State of the State address, if you want to go watch it, was sewer in rural areas. And I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to give people grants to put in septic tanks or whatever, but the idea the state of Alabama is going to get in the sewer business is foolish.
Well, they could always hook up to Baldwin County sewer.
Yeah,
No
we'll just let that
regulation there.
proliferate everywhere. So,
Prince
another
Andrew.
casualty in the saga of Jeffrey Epstein. Prince Andrew will no longer hold his royal titles.
Yep, Mama took them badges away.
And Raines, I
all
thought
royal, just in case anybody was wondering, all royal titles are property and possessed by the Queen of England.
Right.
Which means if the Queen of England has all of the royal titles as the monarch, and she can dispense those royal titles at her whim. The titles that Prince Andrew held were traditional peerage titles that he inherited as being part of the Windsor family. But those titles are all property of the Queen. So when she took them away, she took them back, and now retains the Duke of Cambridge and a few other titles that Prince Andrew had, mainly his military honors, which are all not earned, but they are inherited.
Right.
At that level.
Okay, so the biggest fraud scheme that I've heard of in a long time. So listen to this craziness. More than a dozen suspects, including a New York City police officer, were arrested following an investigation by the Justice Department, NYPD, and Westchester County District Attorney's Office. Both criminal enterprises would bribe police dispatchers and healthcare workers for information about car accident victims, who they would then connect with crooked doctors that would perform unneeded medical procedures in an attempt to boost the medical records, thereby committing insurance fraud against
then
the
they would
companies.
overbill the insurance company.
It's a beautiful thing, isn't it? $100 million bucks. So
good while it lasted.
Speaking of people going down, Gates has a chatty ex-girlfriend who's been talking to the feds for a couple weeks.
Oh man, please!
I love Vanity Fair.
Just to give you an idea of the weight of her testimony, she was guaranteed immunity from prosecution by the Department of Justice in exchange for her testimony.
Woo! She's gonna sing.
That's pretty strong.
She's gonna sing.
So did y'all hear about this poor lady?
Nope.
She's stuck in a refugee.
Oh, I ain't gonna call her a poor lady, but yeah, I saw it.
Yep. And your Zen moment of the week, Raines. Woman flashes crowd leads to brawl at Supercross event.
Where was
I don't know. It must be some spectacular bosoms. And I snipped this. How many months was it between McDonald and Saget? I'm just saying. I think Stamos is next.
Oh man, I'll be doing that.
It's tough, man. We lost a giant in Bob Saget. There's
Really?
those that make fun of his America's Dad, but let me tell you, one of the funniest comics we've ever produced in this nation. I really, really was deeply saddened to hear that the heart attack took him at his age.
Well, this is going to be our outro, guys. So enjoy it. Sit back and enjoy, Raines.
Everybody have a good weekend and get prepared
Bob
for Sunday.
Saget, who raped and killed a girl in 1990. Well, first of all, it's not true. It's not true that Bob Saget raped and killed a girl in 1990. How do you make an ass hurt? The Olsen twins say, well, Bob Saget hands you a chocolate milk that he just made, and you wake up 3 hours later lying on your stomach.
What a tough gig that must have been, huh? His entire job consisted of saying, take a look at this, which is what he used to say to Mary-Kate Olsen in her dressing room.
I love him like a perverted uncle who pays for lunch and then follows me into the men's room. Al should have been called Blackjack because he hit on the Olsens when they were 8. He didn't stop till they were 21.
That's Jeffrey Ross.
Is it true they used to give Mary-Kate acting lessons? He'd tell her, act like this never happened. Bob Saget is a sick bastard. He has 2 daughters in college and 3 girlfriends in high school. Most comics dream of performing in Las Vegas, Nevada. Bob Saget dreams of performing in Hannah, Montana.
Bob has done a lot for this country. For 8 seasons, half an hour a week, Full House kept pedophiles off the street. In fact, 3 of them were on the show.
I'm glad I got out of sitcoms before you killed them. You didn't just kill sitcoms, you raped them and left them for dead in a ditch.
It's not topical. It's just about. It's as if it's as if it's about your life. You know.
How come none of my friends ever have a dungeon? Instead, they all just have rape dungeons. So it's not a regular dungeon, is what you're saying.
Dungeon.
Thanks for again. The bus. I've never been thrown under an entire Trailways fleet.
You have any proof that Bob Saget raped and killed a girl in 1990? Stop gossiping and go right to the police with it.
See you later, Rain. I gotta run.